can't touch this. You can't touch this.
Oh, hello there. Welcome to Hammer Time. I'm Jacob LaHammer. In tonight's show, we're going to talk about a controversial topic that has been brought up again due to a shooting in Maryville, Washington, where a student opened fire in the school cafeteria in which he killed one student and shot 4 others before turning the gun on himself. This tragic event brings us to question whether or not we as a nation are doing everything we can to protect the American citizens. Many people believe that we need to step up our gun control, but I, on the other hand, think it's just perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, my definition of gun control is using 2 hands, and that's because guns do not kill people. People kill people with guns as a tool. Now, most people who own guns do not want to harm people. It's a very small percentage, in fact, that do. A study from the PEW Research Center shows that 48% of people who own a firearm own it for protection, which is up 22% since 1999. Showing us that people feel that they need a gun to protect themselves from criminals. In fact, armed citizens shoot twice as many criminals as police every year, and 200,000 women use guns to protect themselves from sexual violence every year. Also, only about 8% of the time do people using guns defend themselves by killing their attackers. Most of the time they use a gun to shoot off a warning shot and scare their attackers before having to get into a big tussle. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this country needs guns. And in fact, I believe we need more guns. 3 out of 5 felons agree that they are less likely to mess with somebody who they are aware of is owning a gun. And 54% of felons agree that they are more scared of meeting an armed victim than they are police at a crime scene. Based on these statistics, if more people carried guns on them, crime would go down. Because most criminals do not want to attack a person who they know can defend themselves. Another reason we should not have gun control is because it simply has not worked the way we have wanted it to. Washington, D.C. has had some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation, but yet in the 25 years since its gun ban, the murder rate in D.C. has risen 51%. Whereas in nation as a whole, we have decreased 36%. Now some people might say, well, the only reason that's happening is because people go to Virginia where the gun control laws are much looser. And even if that is the case, when you compare statistics, Virginia does not have remotely close of a problem as D.C. does. The murder rates since the D.C. gun ban in D.C. is 46.4 per 100,000 people. And in Arlington, Virginia, it is 2.1 per 100,000 people. And the average murder rate in every metropolitan area in Virginia is 6.1 per 100,000 people. Some people might say, well, we should put a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. But I say no. There is no reason to ban assault weapons or high-capacity magazines. For the time period of 1994 to 2004, the U.S. government put a ban on assault weapons. And after that ban was lifted, they did an evaluation. And in that evaluation, it states, we were unable to detect any reductions to date in 2 types of gun murders that are thought to be closely associated with assault weapons. And a Washington Times study proved that arbitrary magazine capacity restriction that was in place for a decade did not reduce crime. In fact, most shootings in the United States happen with handguns, not with rifles. In the roughly 11,000 gun-related murders that took place in 2012, the FBI reported that only 326 of them were used with rifles. Most homicides are being committed with handguns, but as a nation, we need to keep them for self-defense purposes. People who support banning assault weapons might say, but if we ban assault weapons, we'll have less mass shootings. And that may be true, but James Allen Fox, a criminologist at Northeastern University, stated that roughly 100 people out of the 11,000 gun crimes per year are shot in mass shootings, which is less than 1% of all gun-related homicides. Gun violence is very prevalent in black men. Big cities such as New Orleans are trying to target the men who are most at risk and set them up with jobs in hopes that they will go back into the streets and not become a part of the gun violence. Mayor of New Orleans, Mitchell J. Landrieu, and Mayor of Philadelphia, Michael A. Nutter, are founders of Cities United, a program of mayors trying to prevent the deaths of black men in their cities. Landrieu once said, "This is not just a gun issue. It's an unemployment issue. It's a poverty issue. It's a family issue. And it's a cultural violence issue." Even the Justice Department, over 20 years of research, has found that programs targeting high-risk people or places instead of certain types of guns reduce gun violence. So I guess you could say that it isn't a gun problem. It is a people problem. And the way that we can cut down on gun violence is by helping those who are most at risk for gun violence. Well, that's all the time we have, America. Thanks for stopping by.
Touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this.